Okay, so getting back into our coverage over the X-Men, we actually pick up with X-Men Unlimited issue number 2. Now remember, when it comes to X-Men Unlimited, it was a 1990s series that was really more to kind of use to test out new writers or to test out new artists that came over to Marvel Comics. Now, when it came to X-Men Unlimited, it was actually released every 3 months. So in 1 year, you only get like 4 issues, and that would be it. Now, we already covered the first one a while back, the whole idea of the X-Men leaders being attacked by the upstart organization. But when it comes to X-Men Unlimited issue number 2, it really does tie into the whole idea of fatal attractions. I have been saying this in our last few videos when it comes to our coverage over fatal attractions. You see, for fatal attractions for Marvel Comics, it was a huge event. And the reason why, because they were able to use all the different X books minus Cable for this actual crossover. So Excalibur, X-Factor, X-Force, X-Men, Uncanny X-Men, and also Wolverine. But when it came to fatal attractions, you also had other storylines that took place in the middle of those chapters when it came to the main storyline for fatal attractions. Like, for example, we had just covered the 3rd chapter of the actual crossover that took place in Uncanny X-Men issue number 304. And so after that issue right there, you had a bunch of different storylines happen before we dive into X-Men issue number 25, which is the next main chapter for fatal attractions. Now today, we're going to cover X-Men Unlimited issue number 2. And the reason why, because it's now the world finding out that Magneto is once again back. And this time, it could be a big problem. And here's the reason why. Because for Magneto, he realized that for the mutant race, there's no way that the mutant race can actually survive on Earth. Because the human race is now finding different ways to actually attack the mutant race. But also because of the legacy virus. Now, we're not going to dive into the legacy virus in this video. Just know that by this point in Marvel Comics, there was some kind of virus out there that was released by Strife to kill off the mutant race. But getting back over to Magneto, when it came to Magneto, he realized that the mutant race cannot survive on Earth. And so he took pieces of the Gray Malkin, the old base of Cable, and built a new base called Avalon. Now he's calling Avalon the heaven for the mutant race because Earth is hell. Go ahead and leave hell and come over to heaven, and we'll live in peace on my new base in space. Now, when it comes to Magneto, it's not him opening the doors to all the mutants across the world. Only the ones he deems to be worthy to live on Avalon alongside with him. But like I said, it's now Magneto making his presence known. And so with his presence being known, it's now the human race freaking out and wondering what they should do to Magneto before he tries to something down the road that could possibly lead to him attacking the Earth. Now, when it comes to this actual book, the entire story is being told to us by one character, and his name is Adrian Iscult. Now, when it comes to Adrian, in the opening pages of this book, it's really more of Adrian telling us about the first time he had met Magneto and what was it like. It was completely scary for him. And let me explain, because in this flashback, it took place in a time where when it came to Germany, it was actually 2 different territories. You had East Germany that was trying to attack Magneto on Wundagore Mountain. Now, really, when it came to East German's army, they were just kind of driving by, but for Magneto, he hated the idea that they had wandered into Wundagore Mountain. Now, Wundagore Mountain is very important for a lot of different things in Marvel Comics, but for the sake of this video, the main reason why it's so important for this book goes all the way back over to the High Evolutionary. Now, he had created creatures that were animals that would act and walk just like humans. For example, there was a character known as Bova. Now, Bova looked like a cow, but could walk and talk like a human. Now, the reason why she's so important, because when it came to Bova, she ran into Magda, the wife of Magneto. Now, by that point, she was on the run and trying her best to hide from her husband, Magneto. But she was also pregnant with twins, the Scarlet Witch and also Quicksilver. So you have Bova being the one to kind of help her through the entire pregnancy. Now, when it came to Magda, she had died on the mountains and she was buried on the mountains. And so for Magneto, he hates the idea that this army right now is trying to climb up the mountains and kind of ruin this sacred area that Magneto claimed to be sacred because his wife was buried there. And so you have Magneto using his powers on this army. Now, for Magneto, going up against the army was kind of like light work for him. He was able to use his powers to take out the entire army like it was nothing. Now, the person in charge of this group right here, he does call for a full-on retreat. And so we shift over to Adrian and also a fellow soldier, and you have the two of them just trying their best to get away. But here comes the problem. You see, they run into Bova, but they also found the grave of Magda. Now, for Magneto, he gets very upset. And the reason why, because he now believes that Adrian and this other soldier has now just ruined the eternal rest of Magda, his wife. And so he gets so angry because he has all those flashbacks where the human race has caused him so much pain, so many problems in his entire life, but also towards other mutants as well. And so he does use his powers to kill off that other fellow soldier that was with Adrian. Now for Adrian, he's kind of like, oh my God, my partner there was just trying to surrender and you killed him just like nothing. But for Magneto, it's kind of like, no, I'm trying to use him as an example. The whole idea that mutants and humans are just alike. We all feel the same thing. The whole idea, losing somebody hurts both sides in the same kind of ways. Now, as we go to the present day, we actually pick up with Adrian in therapy. Now, it does seem like for the therapist that Adrian is not trying to actually heal from that moment in time. It kind of sees that for Adrian, he still has this bloodthirst. And so she's kind of wondering, like, why do you even bother coming to therapy if you're not trying to achieve the idea of changing for the betterment of your mind? But for Adrian, it's more of like, I came here hoping that I could find something different, a different path that I don't want to take really. And so it's him kind of saying like, I was hoping that maybe, just maybe, you could help me talk myself out of going after Magneto, a different path in life. But I feel like I have no choice. I have to go after Magneto because I see what he truly is. But now we have to jump over to Empire State University, where we actually pick up with a character known as Gabrielle Haller. Now, Gabrielle Haller is really important because she has huge connections to both Charles Xavier and also Magneto. Now, for the sake of this video, I'm only going to truly focus on her connection to Magneto, and that is really it. Now, we see her kind of giving out a speech to a class of people who are currently studying about the idea of Magneto. Now, for Gabrielle, like I said, she has huge connections to Magneto, and so she truly knows a lot about him. She even says, like, you guys are studying a man and kind of wondering if this man is really evil or not. Well, here I am right now to kind of give you the complete story of the actual origin of Magneto. Now, really, for Gabrielle, kind of telling the origin of Magneto is pretty neat. And let me explain why. Because if you were somebody back in the 90s trying to get into X-Men comics, this was the perfect book to pick up to get the full understanding of the character of Magneto. And so as she talks to the entire class, we do get a quick review of the actual character. Like, for example, this was a man who lived through the Holocaust. Now, while trying to survive in the Holocaust, he met his wife, Magda. Now, I have said in my earlier videos that when it came to Magneto and Magda, they had another child before the Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, and that would be Anya. Now, we had talked about the idea that Anya was a young girl who died in a fire because there were villagers who were very upset with Magneto. and they set his home on fire. Now, back then, that was the first time Magneto kind of knew that he was different, that he had powers. And he tried to use his power to save his daughter, but unfortunately, he was unable to do that. Now, while he did use his powers to attack the villagers, it scared Magda, and that is why she ran over to Wundagore Mountain. Now, when it came to Magneto, he tried his best to move on with his life. And so he began to work at a hospital that was kind of created to help out people who were trying to survive after being in the camps of the Holocaust. And that was where he ran into Gabrielle. And he was able to properly heal her, but also build a bond with her. Now, for Gabrielle, she does not give us more information after that moment, but she does tell us this right here. For the character of Magneto, is he truly a dictator? Because to her eyes and her mind, he is not. Because here's the thing, he has no country that he is fighting for. Is here right now trying to fight for a cause to help out the mutant race. And so she kind of ends her speech to have the class wonder, hey, is he truly an evil person? Or maybe, just maybe, he's actually a good person. Now, I want to jump back over to Adrian. Here's the reason why. Because you have Adrian being this hot-tempered character where he's kind of just on this plane and his mind is full of hatred things about Magneto. Now, we also see him kind of reading a book about fatal attractions, a book called Fatal Attractions. That book is going to be very important for the next few sections coming up very soon. But while on his plane over to New York, we also see Adrian kind of see a man who has hair just like Magneto. And because his mind is full of hatred, he automatically believes that guy right there is Magneto. And he goes to confront that guy to only find out this is an old man that has hair like Magneto. And as Adrian realized that he needs to calm down because right now his mind wandering could actually get him in trouble. Now, for Adrian, once he's able to get into New York, he gets a hotel. Now, once in his hotel room, he does watches some TV. He watches, well, Nightline. Now, while watching Nightline, the actual author of the book he just read, Fatal Attractions, is actually on Nightline. And that will be J.B. Chambers. Now, for Chambers, he's kind of on the side of the mutant race. And let me explain, because he says the humans are at fault for the birth of the mutant race. You see, for the humans out there, we have brought so many toxins into the environment. And so those toxins had made their way over to humans' DNA. And so over time, it led to the birth of the mutant race. Now, this is not Chambers actually saying that it's the actual origin of the mutant race, but it's him saying like it could be the actual reasoning why we have mutants on Earth. But at the same time, we should try our best to live and work alongside with the mutant race because we have no idea if we are responsible for the actual birth of the race. But also on Nightline, you have Graydon Creed. Now, can I say that every time he pops up, I have somebody in the comments section saying like, hey, Graydon Creed is the son of Sabretooth and Mystique. Yes, you guys are right. But for Graydon Creed, let's not forget, because the way Mystique had raised him, it kind of led to him beginning to hate on the mutant race completely. He wants to wipe them out off the board across the entire Earth. And so for him, it's him saying like, no, you are wrong, Chambers. Like mutants are not our fault. And matter of fact, we should not be trying to live with them at all. It's the two guys right now just going back and forth on Nightline about the whole idea of what to do with the mutant race. Now, we do pick up with Adrian meeting up with Gabrielle. Now, for this meeting is really more of Adrian knowing that Gabrielle is the best person to find Magneto. Now, I don't know if I said this earlier in the video, but the first half of this storyline does take place before Uncanny X-Men issue 304. And so with that being said, the public does not know for sure that Magneto is alive. Now, the government only found different clues to kind of prove that there's a possibility the man is alive. And so you have really more of Adrian coming to Gabrielle saying, listen, I need you to help me find Magneto. You are the best person to figure out where he is at, but also you are the best person to help us to bring him down. Now, for Gabrielle, even though she knows that Adrian's working for his government, which is Germany, and she knows that it's really more of like trying to get ready to bring him down just in case he does attack the earth, she can kind of tell for Adrian's sake that this is more personal, that he wants to actually kill off Magneto. And she says, I'll help out, but I can tell right now, if you cross the line and try to kill him, I will step away. I'm only helping you to capture him and then put him on trial to kind of see if other people of the world truly believes that man is really guilty. Now, we have to jump over to the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Now, remember, in the 1990s, by this point, this version of the Brotherhood was being led by Toad. So you had Toad, Blob, Fantasia, and also Pyro. Now, they're supposed to meet up with somebody else, but they are then confronted by Exodus. Now, when it comes to Exodus, it's really more him being the right-hand man of Magneto, but also offering different mutants across the world that Magneto had deemed worthy. Say, hey, you know what? I feel like you should come up to Avalon and live in heaven. And so when it comes to Exodus, he tells Toad, Pyro, and Blob that he's not there for them. Instead, he's here for Fantasia. Now, for Toad, he's really upset by this. And the reason why, because in the early days of X-Men comics, Toad was kind of like the clown of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, the jester. You have Magneto use him for almost all different kinds of schemes. So for Toad, he feels like he has the right to go to Avalon. But as Exodus saying, no, you don't. For Magneto, you're not worthy, not Pyro, not Blob, only her. Now she says no, and he leaves. But it really shows that for Toad, nothing has changed. For Magneto, Toad is technically nothing. Now, the next section, we jump back over to Adrian. Here's the reason why. Because for Adrian, we do learn that he was the one who was supposed to meet up with Toad. Now, by this point, the two characters, they did meet up. But for Toad, it was really more the idea of he wanted to get revenge against Magneto, and he realized that if anybody out there is going to try to kill off Magneto, he would be down with the idea of sharing any kind of information that might help that person get that revenge against Magneto. And so for Adrian, he was able to collect a ton of information about Magneto from Toad. Now, here's the thing, because I'm going to skip over a few things, because you also have Adrian learn more things about Magneto after the fact that he became Magneto. Like the whole idea that he was turned into a baby, but then he returned adulthood later on in X-Men comics. Now, when it comes to him being a baby, it's going to be very important for the later chapters of this video. But for Adrian, he does hear Toad in this interview talk about the idea that Magneto was kind of like, well, Hitler. And here's the reason why you had technically Magneto be compared to Hitler. Because for Magneto, he knew how to keep people in line, but not by physical force, but the whole idea of his courage. The whole idea that maybe, just maybe, he could possibly accomplish his goals. And just like Hitler, it was kind of the same thing. His courage, the way he talked about himself and his goals, got other people in line. And so it's Toad saying Magneto was just like Hitler in many different ways. Now, like I said earlier, the whole idea of Magneto being a baby is going to be very important for today's video. And let me explain why. Because we jump over to Gabrielle having a conversation with, well, Moira McTaggart. Now, this conversation is really important because both ladies had unfortunately dated Charles Xavier, and unfortunately, they got their heart broken by Charles Xavier. Now, for Moira McTaggart, the whole idea of Magneto being a baby is really important for her. And the reason why, because when he was a baby, she was the one who's kind of taking care of him. But she remembered that when he was an adult before turning into a baby, he was technically a villain. And so she thought she could use her science skills to kind of alter his DNA, alter his genes where when he grows up, he'll be a good guy rather than a bad guy. And so in reality, it kind of did work, but then down the road, he still turned into a bad guy once again. And so she kind of feels sad about the idea of even trying that on a man who was just trying to achieve a goal that he believed was best for the mutant race. Now, the reason why you have Gabrielle calling up Moira Taggart, because she was the one who was trying to alter his DNA, alter his genes, hopefully turn him into a good guy when he turned back into adulthood, she would know best on how to actually bring him down. And so with that kind of information, then you could possibly build a weapon or some kind of game plan on how to bring down Magneto. Now, we do jump back to Adrian and also Gabrielle, but now we see the two of them a few weeks later going over to Gentech, a company that was able to build up a suit that would give a man the ability to take out Magneto if they wanted to. And so for Adrian, he begins to hear how the suit is actually able to sneak up on Magneto. Now, for Adrian, he knows that he's not allowed to kill off Magneto. And so that is why they're giving him a gun that will only stun Magneto. Now, thanks to Moira Taggart's report and also Gabrielle's report, they have a full understanding of how Magneto's powers work. And so with this suit, Adrian should be able to actually take out Magneto. Now, some time passes again where we do pick up with the American government talking about the idea that Magneto has returned. And really, this kind of picks up where Uncanny X-Men 304 left off at. The whole idea of Magneto coming down to Earth with Avalon, but also offering heaven towards the X-Men, X-Factor, and also X-Force. Now, with that being said, we already know all three teams said no except for Colossus. But with the coming back down, the American government knows about him. And so they're wondering if they should go ahead and make a move. But here's the problem though. For Magneto and also Exodus, they have not really done anything at all to be charged for a crime at the moment. But at the same time, you still have all these different parties of the American government agree that Magneto has to be stopped. But the problem is his base is in space. They have no way to actually travel up to space to take him out. Now for Adrian, he knows that there's one place on Earth that will give them the opportunity to take out Magneto. And that would be at the grave of Magda, when you have Magneto just trying to pay respect to his late wife or late ex-wife. Either way, you also have Adrian there with the weapon and having the opportunity to actually take out Magneto. But here's the thing. For Adrian, he kind of realized it'd be wrong to kill off Magneto this way. And the reason why, because it seems that for Adrian, he fully understands what Magneto has gone through. Because if you go back to all those different pages where you had Adrian being able to gather information about Magneto, where he had learned about the origin of Magneto, he realized that this is a man who had just lost so much over the years in his life. And so he kind of understands that for Magneto, he's not really like Hitler. He's trying to bring up the mutant race, but also protect the mutant race from being killed off from the human race. And so even though for Adrian, he lost his fellow soldier brother thanks to Magneto killing him off 7 years ago in the past, he realized that he only lost so little compared to what Magneto had lost over the years. And so Adrian is unable to kill off Magneto when Magneto was completely defenseless. And he drops the gun and Magneto sees him. And you have Magneto realize that he was only seconds away of dying, but he gets to live and goes back over to Avalon. And for Adrian, well, this was his last appearance ever in Marvel Comics. But this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.